My name is Gordon Sharp. I'm the inventor of what you're seeing in front of you, which is called the MezMirage, which is a kinetic sculpture, basically using airflow. A lot of people, when they look at this, really from a distance, they think, well, it looks like water, it looks like liquid, and maybe suds, or maybe it's a big washing machine or something, because it doesn't look like it looks like a very liquid-like or fluid motion. So in reality, there actually is no liquid in it, and what there is actually air and these little polystyrene beads, little balls. And what's happening is something known in science as a fluidized bed. A fluidized bed is when little particles have air moving through them or past them, and the air basically suspends the particles. So they begin to float, and then they begin to move with the air. So they basically take on the motion of the air. So where this all came about is that many years ago when I was a student at MIT, I took a course on developing art, basically using technology. So the idea was to use technology and science to create art forms of different types. And I saw some professors working on some different things that were using something called a fluidized bed. And I thought that it might have some exciting applications for artwork. So I basically began to develop this on my own for this class, and then created about a 6-foot tall version, about 1 foot square, that used this idea of fluidized bed, a scientific principle. So what we have is basically a fan that's blowing air up into the bed, into this column of beads here you're seeing now. And basically when the air goes through it, it basically begins to fluidize it. You can sort of see that action now with sort of the liquid-like or sort of rolling action of the beads in the column. So that's what's sort of happening. It's basically we're seeing the beads take on the motion of the air and basically tracing the patterns of the air. So with just a small amount of air, you can see that happening. Here we have sort of a fountain effect. So we can do many different effects with the beads. So now we're putting more air into the whole column. You can see this sort of rolling action. You can see sort of the beads sort of going up and then sort of coming down. And this sort of creates this sort of fluid-like action. The MIT Museum found one of these units in their basement. Apparently someone saw it when they were putting together an exhibit on kinetic art and thought this would be quite interesting and be fun to show off. That got me back interested and excited again. It was on display for a few years at the museum, and during that time I began to think maybe I could make something and go back to my dream of making a much larger version. So I actually had an MIT student help me a little bit, got some other people to help as well. And basically we began to form this concept for a much larger version, which is what you're seeing now in front of you. So instead of being 2 feet tall, this is about 19 feet tall. So much larger, and the column, instead of being 5 inches square, is about 2 feet by 4 feet. So a much larger unit we have here. And the effects then become much more dramatic. It becomes a bit of a challenge to make something that large, because plexiglass is sort of brittle, it's a little hard to work with. So we had to make it strong enough to be able to sustain and not fall apart, but also be easy to move around and work with. The Boston Children's Museum had their Created By Festival, and we decided to exhibit this at the festival, so it would be fun, I thought, for the people coming to the festival to be able to actually play with the unit, to actually interact with it and control its operation a bit. So what we did is decided to allow people to vary the colors, because the color has a big impact, as you see, on the appearance of this. So we made as an interactive, what I call coloring station. So as we have over here, you can sort of see these are these coloring stations that allow us to change the colors that are being displayed. So these are different things we did to sort of allow people to sort of interact and change the appearance and change the effects of the MezMirage.